Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a program exclusively designed to promote reproductive health awareness and discuss fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
She's known as the Egg Whisperer.
Fertility expert Dr. Amy Vazadeh.
And you have yet another success story
just launched by an East Bay fertility doctor.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Egg Whisperer Show. I have one of my favorite people in the whole world here because he's helped so many families come to life. This is Dr. Paul Turek, also known as the Sperm Whisperer. Welcome, Dr. Turek.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. It's great to be back.
So tell me about your day today. What did you do?
Today was busy. We have a mobile care unit because guys don't like to come to me, so I go to them now.
That's really
and
nice.
We saw some patients around the Bay Area and San Francisco Bay Area. And then I went into surgery for a complicated case where a man had no sperm, and I mapped him, and then I went for a sperm retrieval, and it was tough but very highly successful, and everyone's happy.
Awesome. I mean, people know what a female fertility expert is, but tell me a little bit more about what you do. I mean, your job is really, really important.
Yeah, I'm stream team, pecker checker stream team. We just devote ourselves to men. I don't have any female patients. It's all about the guy. It's the guy. So it's a whole different breed, right? The wild animal, you got to get him in. So the problem with my field is no one knows about it because no one knows about it. Right. So if you look at couples who are infertile, they're supposed to each be evaluated with care, and women get the care because they're proactive. Men typically don't. Mm-hmm. So only 1 out of 5 men who is infertile actually gets any care. So you may say, what are you talking about? And the answer is, in America, they do get a semen analysis, but in my opinion, and those in my field, that's not care. So we can find things if we see them, but we can't find them if we don't.
Right.
So that's a bit of a stump for me.
Right.
That's my soapbox. And for National Infertility Awareness Week, the blog last week is Turek blog on Google is looking under the rock of male infertility.
Right.
So the idea is take a moment and really take care of these men and see what you find, and you'll be amazed what you find.
Right. And I call it personalized fertility care, which is understanding you. And for women, a lot of people think that just checking an FSH, estradiol, and AMH is fertility screening, and certainly that's not all of it. So I'm glad you brought that up. And it seems like we talk so much about women. We have the Me Too movement. Clearly, we need the Men Too movement too. We
do. And, we've been working quietly in the background for years, serving the underserved. I call infertile men I call men medically underserved. And we can have a conversation with whiskey over this one, but yes. It's complicated,
in
right?
Your mobile unit.
Men are built for providing and not complaining, and there's a cultural issues. Part of it's internal, part of it's external, but they just don't do well. Boys get their care from a pediatrician, they go off to college, right. And you don't see them till they're 45, or they have a problem, and that's the honest truth, and it's just really sad. Right. And our system isn't preventative enough to do that, and men aren't bound to a cycle like women are every month, where they know something's wrong. So,
that's so
I think the blog is called the Sound and the Fury. They're like old Maseratis. They're not going to bend or make noise. They're just going to break eventually. And you've got it. We're trying to catch them before it happens. That's the whole biomarker movement that we're starting.
Right. That's so true. Because for me, I tell my patients, when your period starts, think of me. Right? And so there's no analogy for guys. I guess you could say when your wife's period starts, think of me.
Think of me, yeah.
I don't know how well that works.
That'll work.
Maybe it'll work. You could try that. So, as you know, I have so many people around the country and even the world who have sent in their questions because they all knew that you were going to be on tonight's show. So I just wanted to ask you some of the questions that people have asked.
Sure.
So one of them is that how old is too old to have a baby for a man?
It's a great question. It's a very active issue called advanced paternal age. Mm-hmm. And advanced paternal age has been linked to diseases in offspring, so it becomes very important. And health of sperm, too. So there are issues as men get older, similar to women, but different, because what happens as men age is their sperm incur more problems. And one of them is DNA fragmentation. Mm-hmm. Another one is they have a lot more single gene mutations, which lead to debilitating diseases in children and offspring. Unlike women, who basically have a lot of chromosomal errors in their eggs, which usually lead to miscarriage or fetal death or things like that. So it's less subtle.
Right.
So, and you can detect women's issues prenatally, but you can't detect a lot of the men issues prenatally. And the men issues can cause problems with fertilization, embryo development. So along the whole path of, is the egg fertilizing? Am I getting pregnant? Is the embryo, are you getting miscarriages? Every single stage of the way, there's a higher rate of problems in women with older paternal age. Everything from miscarriage to embryo development to early prenatal death to late trimester deaths to birth defects. It's wild. Now, what's really interesting to me is that this field is new. It's new for several reasons. One is men never lived long enough to be of older paternal age, because we don't even have a definition for that. But 50 would be considered older, and in a lot of books, 40. I know this because I wrote a review article that just got published in the Journal of Assisted Reproductive and Genetics, and it will be available for everybody in a couple months as a open access paper called Reproductive Genetics in the Aging Male. And when I submitted it, they asked me, what's your definition of older paternal age? And I said something, and they said, well, we don't agree with that. And we had this discussion in the editorial staff about what is the definition? And the answer is we don't know. Because the way risk runs with men and women, these two risks that they bring to bear on kids, is they're hockey stick shaped curves. So they're flat for a while, and then they go up pretty dramatically like a hockey stick. And that, I think that's the blog, something about hockey sticks. But it's flat for the longest time, and it starts taking a curve, and we don't know exactly when. But I would say that if you're worried about reproductive risk to children as a man, 60 would be an age where I wouldn't freeze sperm after that.
Right.
40 to 50 seems to be an age when you start thinking about it. But in the literature, I'd say 40 is considered advanced paternal age.
Right.
As a reference point, the average age of a man who's a first father in America is 30 right now. Used to be 25, 26. Now it's 30. So it is moving up.
Right.
But the other interesting fact is we never lived long enough to be older paternal age fathers.
Right.
So if you look at our lifespans in America, developed countries, 50 years ago, we lived 50 years.
Yeah.
Right? So in the 70s, we went to like 60 or 70. Now we're 75 to 80. But for the last millennia, I mean, in 100 years ago, the average age was 35.
Yeah.
Right? You lived to 35. Cavemen, probably 25,
Right.
maybe less. So any infection would kill you, right? So the whole concept of what's old is just so new.
Right.
That's what's interesting about it. So we're really only dealing with this for 30, 40 years, and it is a real new issue. The other interesting fact is that we now know that epigenetics, which is a new field in medicine that came after genomics, which is after the Human Genome Project, is actually explaining a lot of what's happening both with women and with men. Day by day, we're learning more and more that the way sperm are built and the way their DNA is marked changes with age. It's not mutations. It's not chromosome issues. It's not DNA fragmentation. It's just the markings on the DNA. They change with age, and they're instrumental in fertilization, embryo quality, miscarriage, and probably a lot of the neurodevelopmental diseases in children like autism, schizophrenia, dyslexia, and bipolar disorder are probably a chunk of those are male-driven. It's fascinating what's happening.
So I have patients that come to me, let's say a woman is 43, and she asks me, am I too old to be pregnant? And I can certainly do, standard fertility screening tests and tell her what her chances are of having a healthy pregnancy. So if, let's say, there was a man who was 43 or even 53, or, you can pick an age, is that something that they can come to you for and say, hi, Dr. Turek, I'm just curious, am I too old to have a baby? And what would be my risk if I did?
I don't think that science is granular enough to say that, but it might be. So there's a company called Episona in Los Angeles, which is coming out with a second generation test, which will tell you as a man what the chronological age of your sperm are. So I don't know if it'll ever come out, but it's a really cool idea, which
Yeah.
is, it's just what you're saying, basically.
Right.
It doesn't tell you specific risk, but it tells you, am I a 50-year-old, 40-year-old?
Right.
Or am I a 60-year-old, 40-year-old? Am I a 30-year-old, 40-year-old? So I'm all over that one. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be a really informative thing for men to use to say, should I freeze my sperm or not? Should
Right.
I try to have a kid now or not?
Well, what's
Right
interesting,
now,
yeah, I
it's
mean,
all it's all risk
right.
evaluation.
So
right?
for women, like when I see a 43-year-old, she might have the levels of a 25-year-old, but her eggs will still behave like a woman that's over 40.
Right. So I think we're going to be able to do that with sperm
Wow.
using epigenetic science within 5 years.
Awesome. And along the lines of epigenetics, what can a guy do to improve his profile, so to speak?
Hard to say, but the early data from the last year or two looks like lifestyle, and lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. I started this field, and about half the time we could figure out what's going on with a guy, and half the time we couldn't. And I'm thinking this chunk of stuff with lifestyle all of a sudden becomes really important. Preconception care, a fertility supplement. I have one called Essential Beginnings, which is organic. It's essentialbeginnings.com, which
Right.
is one thing. So I think, we know it helps fragmentation rate and things like that.
Right.
I think that the deal with epigenetics is it's the same idea, but a longer timeline.
Right.
So you need to take care of yourself for a longer period of time to change the epigenetics to make it more favorable. So we're talking not 3 to 6 months, more like 6 to 12 months.
Right. That's perfect. So men should be taking a prenatal vitamin, basically like Essential Beginnings, for 3 to 6 months before they get pregnant, similar
I
to
think so.
how we recommend to women.
Right. And I'd say especially if there is an older maternal age issue, if a woman's over 35, 38, and you want the best sperm for that egg. And so it's not about numbers. It's not about the semen analysis. This is a deep dive. This is
Right.
looking closer at sperm function, which is actually what we're talking about. If you look at older men, their semen analyses can be very good.
Yeah.
Generally, the volume goes a little bit down. The counts stay the same until you stop making it. And the motility drops by about 1/10 of a point per year.
Okay.
So 1 point per decade, maybe 1 point per year. I'd say that 1 point per year,
Okay.
roughly, after age 40. So the motility might fall 10 points per decade, but very little change.
Got it.
And so, but the infertility goes way up, and the question is, and other things go way up. So it's not about the look anymore. It's going deeper into the sperm.
Right, taking a deep DNA dive. So that's along the lines of this next question that we had sent to us, and this was, can good egg quality overcome poor or high DNA fragmentation of sperm?
It's a great question too, and the answer is yes. I think I have a blog called Takes Two to Tango, and think of it as a dance, and think of it as a rumba, or a really nice dance, and you have to have at least 2 good legs out of 4 to make it happen. Otherwise, you'll fall over. If the woman is a little older and her knees aren't as good, but the guy's really strong, it'll probably go fine. Likewise, if the woman is young and has good knees and the guy doesn't, it may also go well. But if they both have a problem, it might not finish. You might not finish the dance. So
Right.
That's exactly what's going on. I mean, sperm introduce errors in their DNA as they present it to eggs. Eggs filter those errors and have DNA mismatch repair enzymes, about 3,000 of them, that turn on and spend the first 2 days fixing things. Maybe that's typical of the species. But when that's done, it's either going to go or no go. And the egg's going to make that decision after fertilization.
Got it.
And that's why the sperm has to be the best it can be.
That's what I tell my patients. We got to put sperm through a fitness challenge before we do
Yep.
IVF to make those
And that, by the
eggs
way,
look
the
as good
fitness
as
challenge,
possible.
the fitness challenge has been invented. It's going to be out on the market now.
I love it.
It's a little obstacle course for sperm.
So the next question is, if ICSI is unsuccessful, is it more egg quality or sperm quality that is to blame?
It's a good point. ICSI is, basically removing the barriers of fertilization. So you're really looking at, mono-y mono or mono-y woman. It's a sperm. It's either, there's different types of DNA, but it's still quite a dance. So I'd say our classic thinking was that sperm had very little contribution to what happened in a dish after the sperm was introduced to the egg. We thought of it as a payload, a DNA payload that once delivered, was up to nature, and nature was the egg. But now we know more, and that has to do with DNA fragmentation and epigenetics, and it can certainly be instrumental. There's little microRNAs that are in the sperm that were made earlier that get delivered to the egg, and a lot of the logistics of embryo development are sperm driven. So it's pretty clear now, and that's new. So I would normally say 5% chance that sperm, 10 years ago, I would say 5% chance the sperm was causing the problem. Now I might say 45.
Wow. And then what can be the cause of oligospermia if, let's say, genetic testing has been done? And when I say genetic testing, I mean a karyotype or Y chromosome microdeletion. So if those things are normal, what else could cause oligospermia?
So typically it's not that. That's probably 10% of the explanation. The most common is a varicocele, which is dilated veins in the scrotum that are acting like varicose veins in the leg, but they're in the scrotum, detected on a 2-minute physical exam and quite correctable surgically.
And I tell people not to Google varicocele because you'll see some scary pictures. Not scary, but
think of it as ropey veins in the scrotum, and they occur at puberty. So it's a benign lesion. Bless you.
Thank you.
And then, and that's about 40% of the time. So that's going to be 4 times more common than genetics. And then I would say obesity is a classic reason for low sperm count. So anything that keeps the body unhealthy will do it. Anything that lowers testosterone levels, chronic stress, hot tubs, anything that you can think of, social drugs, cocaine, tobacco, marijuana. So, this is the one that everyone's like, oh, everyone's doing it. Can't be bad.
Exactly.
The weed worries. I mean, I'm very worried about this. It's a production problem. It's a DNA fragmentation problem. It's not innocent. It's a risk for testis cancer. It's not an herbal remedy. Okay,
Right.
It really
it's
is
not natural.
So anything your body takes. So you're trying. Think of sperm production as an engine that wants to run really hard, and anything that you do to bring it down in life with your lifestyle is going to hurt it. So traveling ridiculous amounts, having ridiculous stress chronically. We're built for periods of acute stress as cavemen, right? We're built for periods of starvation. That's probably the key to longevity. But we're not built for chronic stress. We're not built to be chronically connected to a device that rings and you answer it every time it goes off. It's not the way we're made.
Right.
All that stuff adds up.
Right. We're not made for chronic pizza and beer. So you talked a little bit about essential beginnings as far as supplements that can potentially help sperm. Are there any medications a guy can take, and this is one of the questions that someone emailed, that can improve sperm count and quality?
I would say not really, because the way you have to think about it is sperm want to run hard, and all you can do is bring it down. So the way to handle if it's down is to reverse what's keeping it down. So if you're smoking, you stop smoking. So typically, the healthiest body is the one that isn't loaded with medications, right? Now, on the other hand, it's clear that antioxidant supplements, and like Essential Beginnings, which has herbals, minerals, and antioxidants in it, can help but that's independent of the sperm count. That's more of a sperm function issue. So you can help things by a great diet, could help things a lot. Taking absolute fabulous, eat well, sleep well, take great care of yourself. These are basic things, thought to be unimportant until epigenetics came around. I mean, losing 25 pounds changes the epigenetic profile of your sperm a year later. It's unbelievable. And that's inherited.
Yeah.
It's crazy what's going on.
It is. I mean, I wish I could, I tell women your fertility isn't skin deep. It doesn't matter how good you look on the outside. I mean, certainly there are health habits that are important to have, but it's incredible. And I tell guys, you're lucky. So take advantage of this and take advantage of the fact that you can change your lifestyle and that can improve your fertility. So that's really important.
Examples is couples who fail technology and then go home and have a kid, and that's not insignificant.
Right.
I think the 5-year rate of that is 25%. But, they've done all the right things, and then the stress goes away, and then bam.
Right.
And it's not, everyone thinks it's, anecdotally rare. It's not.
Right.
It's pretty common. But and there's women, the fertile diet. There's a book about just people who just decide to eat better.
Right.
And that one move, and they're fertile.
Right.
They're more fertile.
Right.
So I think a lot of this stuff is just starting to make sense to us.
Right.
It's kind of sad that it went through that route of nothing you do really matters. You're unlucky in love if you
Right.
can't, but it's not like that anymore. You actually have control.
Right. And then this is another question. Does the quality of the sperm affect successful fertilization with ICSI? So, I see guys, or couples I should say, they come in and they say, oh, I'm just going to do ICSI. And I say, wait, hold on. We have to have you go see Dr. Turek because I feel like I want your sperm to be as awesome as possible. But does it really matter what the quality is when it comes to ICSI?
So yes, to that question, but the question was fertilization, and I'd say basically not. So fertilization is probably independent of sperm quality. So that's what I would say. That's my answer. But the events after fertilization are very dependent on sperm quality.
And how often, this is another question, how often do you see no fertilization with ICSI?
Typically, it's 1 in 200 cases.
Okay.
And the most common reason is dead sperm. So if you put a dead sperm in there, it's not going to fertilize. But you could put a piece of rice in there, it'll fertilize. I mean, eggs fertilize pretty easily. It's called parthenogenesis. So you can put dust in there. You can get them to fertilize. You can get them fertilized without a sperm. You can just put them in a little calcium bath and they'll fertilize. But it won't be normal.
Well, we did a live sperm show here. I don't think I can do a live egg show and experiment with that, but that does sound interesting. So here's another question. If the sperm count is normal, how can sperm DNA fragmentation be abnormal? And same for DNA methylation. Like, how does that, do they correlate at all? How does that work?
So the answer to that question is, how often have you been to a bookstore and see a really nice cover and then you buy the book and you don't like it that much or it's not very good? So you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge a sperm by its shape, size, or quantity. In fact, one of my favorite sources of sperm is cryptospermia, which is men, maybe cancer survivors, maybe genetic, but they have just a very few sperm in their semen. And to find it in their testicles would be almost impossible. Even with things like mapping or microdissection, it's almost impossible to find sperm because they're just maybe coming from one spot in the wilderness. So I like to use the sperm they have, and they may only have 10 or 20, but those sperm are fine. So it's not really about the count. And sperm go through such a quality control process, it's almost impossible not to have a great sperm after all it's been through to be made.
I see a lot of bumper stickers that I'm going to be making after this show. You'll see them all over my car driving around the Bay Area. This is also awesome. So last few questions and then we'll finish up for the night. But one of my questions is, what is the best prep for a guy for an IUI? I get that question a lot.
Prep of
like, what should he do? Like, how much time should he abstain before the IUI? How long should he collect before the actual procedure?
So I'd say the most important thing about IUIs would be why it's being done in terms of success. But I'd say one of the newest things I've figured out is that if you have a long abstinence period, fragmentation rate of the sperm, it's a quality problem, goes way up. So the quality goes way down, the fragmentation rate goes way up, and high fragmentation rate will kill an IUI success rate. So it's not really the abstinence of the sample that you're giving but it's the abstinence you've done for the month or two before that. So that's kind of a new concept, but I've seen a lot of couples fail because, it's 2 days of abstinence between the last sample and the sample for the IUI, and this motility is really good, but the sperm is old because it hasn't been emptied out for a month or two.
Right.
So, the bin where it's being collected from, the epididymis, it grabs a little bit and shoots it out. It's not being made and then ejaculated immediately. So I would say you should have, regular intercourse or regular ejaculation for the month leading up to it, along with a 2 or 3 day abstinence period for the sample. And to even combat that, so if you're an infrequent ejaculator, and a lot of couples are very stressed out and busy and, they don't get to it as much as they'd like, and even a week of abstinence, I'd probably say you need to spool up for this.
Right.
So it's the samples. You want to be grabbing a great set of sperm from that pot, and it has to be fresh stuff, so you have to replace it.
Right.
And then I would also, just like with intercourse, I'd use a preconception pill like Essential Beginnings, or eat a great diet like Paleo Mediterranean, and get those antioxidants on board. But typically abstinence right before the IUI, it doesn't matter that much. You want probably at least 2 days to get the count up. The motility is probably good for 3 or 4. So it's probably, and that probably doesn't vary that much.
Yeah, great advice. And then what about guys who have problems with ED? Is there one particular medication that you recommend over the other?
No, I think a lot of the ED is stress related. They typically are fine with recreational sex, but when the partner says be home at 5 o'clock and they've got a deal till 6 and they get all stressed out, I tell them, listen, just get home, have the dinner. If it's going well, great, but tell her maybe in the morning, because it's a 2-day, sperm lasts a day or two in the vagina, in the uterus, so you don't really have to worry too much, but get the stress off. If you can get the stress off, go for a run first, whatever, decompress a little bit, disconnect, maybe anticipate a little bit, maybe sext her, do something, some flowers, make it a little more romantic. But when you're infertile, that's usually the issue.
Or also
if you're
clean the house for her, because then that's a little foreplay.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah, Dr.
Do some dishes.
I get a lot of guys to do that one. Do the dishes.
Well, I tell the guys, I say, look, being a fertility patient is so stressful for both, but for women it's just so hard because we just think differently. I just say to the men, I said, just ask your wife, how can I help you? What can I do for you? It's as simple as that. But I just love the perspective you bring, and I just want to say thank you for all the work you do, and thank you for making this subject a little less taboo for everybody. Yes. And we'll keep sending patients your way, and we hope that anyone who is struggling with fertility watches this episode, because the information is really, really going to be helpful in helping so many. Do you have any last-minute thoughts or comments you want to make to our audience? To
the point of uncovering the rock of male infertility and looking underneath it, I'm sponsoring the Art of Infertility in Venice Beach in California in June, National Infertility Awareness Week. It's the whole month of Venice. It's at Venice Arts, and it is the art of infertile couples. Mm-hmm. So, its art is intense. So if you look at it, it's, how they took it out. They did art just to get their frustrations out. But it's really a moving thing, and you should go online. It's called the ART of Infertility, mm-hmm. and it's a nonprofit that just really is trying to capture the essence of what it means to be infertile and look at the quality of life impact, and you'll see that you'll relate. Infertile couples will relate to this stuff. It's intense. Mm-hmm. It's intense. I remember I asked infertile couples in an informal survey when I was a professor, how many years of your life would you give up to have a kid? And you're an infertile couple. And the couples, I asked the men that, and that was pretty impressive. But they both said around 5 years. Wow. You give up 5 years of your life to have a kid. It's that hard. And then I looked in the literature, because there's not much on infertility, and I looked up what cancer patients would do, and it's the same. Wow. Same number. 5 years they would give up to be cured of cancer. 5 years they would give up to have a kid. Yeah. So don't underestimate it. It's real, and it's gravitationally real.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very real. Well, thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for everything you do. And we can't wait to have you on the show again. Thank you for all your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amy.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a program exclusively designed to promote reproductive health awareness and discuss fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
She's known as the Egg Whisperer.
Fertility expert Dr. Amy Vazadeh.
And you have yet another success story
just launched by an East Bay fertility doctor.